stream 緊，好目標係呢個去救翻個 hand 卡嘅，我開翻個攻略出嚟先。其實我咪應該，我咪應該做完主線先。有幾部係要同 Brother Nicodemus 講嘢嘅喎。會唔會係咪冇時間限制嘅咧？而家Do that before talking with the bishop. Once you talk to him, you have 3 days to complete the quest. 咁係咪同佢講嘢之前係冇時間限制嘅咧？應該係 Guitar。係咯，要見 Nicodemus。我都係做主線先啦，我搏佢冇時間限制啦。好鬼熱我間房，突然間係我閂咗個窗。 間房嘅空調原來係咁奇妙。唉，算。打埋個主線先咧咁。我淨係要見 Nicodemus 啫，其實跑翻嚟都得嘅。唉，嚟啦！呢度 keep 個 safe 啦。隻貓好似冇事喎，而家隻貓好似冇事喎，而家我覺得做完個主線先又奇奇怪怪。雖然個 DLC 好明顯真係做完主線之後先玩，即係如果跟呢個 release 個順序。
Yeah.
3日時間揾人，咁係 OK 嘅，其實。
Sir, I am
Henry of Scarlet, from the garrison of the Royal Hetman, Sir Radzig Kobyla. I've heard a lot about you, my son. I'm pleased to meet you.
Bishop Yaroslav, sir, my lord. To what do I owe your interest in my humble self?
I was told you survived the massacre in Skalitz and warned the Townburg garrison. You tracked down the raiders of a stud farm in Neuhof, wasn't it? To their hideout in the woods. And then you led Sir Radzig and his armed company there and joined bravely in the skirmish, even killed their notorious leader by your own hand. And I believe you have many other deeds to your name. That's quite remarkable, considering your age, is it not?
I had some unsettled accounts to deal with, and I still do.
Mm-hmm. You're clearly not lacking in determination. A word of caution, though. Fervor can easily lead to recklessness. Nevertheless, I assume you came on account of Johanka.
Yes.
Then tell me what's on your mind.
How did you find out about Johanka?
Word came to me of what was happening here, that some young girl was claiming to speak for the Blessed Virgin. I traveled here immediately, as my duty demanded, and observed events in Sasau incognito, in order to examine the matter at first hand.
I see. Why did you have her imprisoned?
Because she broke the promise she made to me, and persisted in actions that bear the signs of heresy.
And what will happen to Johanka now?
I must weigh the gravity of her transgressions, and investigate these alleged visions of hers. I consider it very improbable that she is indeed being visited by the Blessed Virgin. Nevertheless, I cannot at this time rule it out entirely.
So you think it could be true? In that case, Johanka hasn't done anything wrong.
It's not that straightforward. Even if her visions were real, she was at fault for interpreting them as she saw fit and preaching to the people.
So you decide just like that? But you don't even know Johanka.
I certainly do not decide just like that. I'm thoroughly examining the entire matter, and you would be well advised not to question my authority. I will call Johanka and the witnesses, question them, and then pronounce a verdict.
And if you decide she's guilty, will you have her burned at the stake?
Good gracious, no. I have no wish to see her die. As St. Augustine said, heretics should be saved, not put to death. The triumph of the Church is their salvation, not their death, even if they deserve it. If I find her guilty of any heresy, she will be punished, but the severity of her punishment will depend on her will to repent and make amends.
I see. And will there be anyone there to defend Johanka?
Do you doubt my judgment?
Well, I would never be so bold, sir. But surely it would be only just that someone should speak for Johanka about all her good deeds and so forth.
Naturally, I will also question those who would speak in her defense. Since you are interceding, I expect you have someone in mind?
Yes. Actually, me.
As I surmised. But this matter does not directly concern you. Why should I allow you to appear before the court?
I represent Jurassic. 有冇咁容易啊？
Johanka is my neighbour, and I have a Christian duty to come to her aid. I can't just stand by and do nothing.
I have to concur with you on that. Your concern seems sincere, so I will grant your request. Very well. You will defend Johanka. You may speak in her defense if you so wish, and you may also bring witnesses. I will question any such witnesses, and naturally I shall question Johanka too.
Thank you, Monsignor. In that case, I'll need to speak to Johanka first.
That won't be possible. It's forbidden by the Inquisition procedure. Until the entire matter is resolved, Johanka can speak only to me and no one else.
我其實有幾個選項都係因為唔想揀漏面嘅，但係咯，其實我唔想揀嘅，所以都係重玩嘅先。
I would like to expedite the matter. The trial will take place in Sasau Church in 3 days' time at the latest. Come and let me know when you're ready to proceed. In the meantime, I will continue my investigation.
Very well, Monsignor. I had better get on with it then, sir. Farewell.
Before you go, you know Johanka longer than anyone else. You spent a lot of time with her, as I've discovered. Tell me, my son, truthfully, what do you think of this whole affair?
Johanka helped a lot of people. She worked her fingers to the bone helping Brother Nicodemus with the sick and injured.
That is certainly commendable. What else can you tell me about her?
achievement 係 嗯。
She's worried about Matthias. He's from Skalitz too, and she's very fond of him. But he was wounded in a raid on Merhojed recently, and since then he's been lying in a fever. Johanka believes that if she does what the Blessed Virgin wants of her, Matthias might be healed.
Interesting. Anything else?
Johanka is an honest girl, and virtuous. She's a good Christian, who attends church and thinks of others.
Good. Please continue.
呢個係咪 trap 嚟嘅？
Well, before, in Skalitz, Johanka was sort of, well, just a simple village girl. I never imagined I'd hear her talking the way she does now. She's completely transformed.
A simple village girl. I see. Do continue.
咪 trap 嚟嘅？
About the Virgin Mary? I believe the Virgin does visit her. Johanka is honest. She wouldn't lie about such a thing. And the things she says sound truthful and compelling. It really does seem like a heavenly revelation. Who else could it be from? But the Virgin Mary.
The origin of these so-called visions of hers must be investigated. But thank you for your candor. Is there anything else you can tell me?
She doesn't treat everyone the same, 即係點？
That's about all I can tell you.
Is that really everything?
Not quite. Please forgive me. Well, Sir Sebastian took a fancy to Johanka and made certain advances towards her. And I think she might have got involved with him.
Sebastian von Berg? The custodian? But to my knowledge, the man is married.
But it's all over now. She's finished with him, really.
So, the gossip about her fornication here is truthful. What else can you tell me?
Maybe. She didn't treat everyone equally. She took better care of her former Skalitz neighbours than of the other patients, of course.
It's understandable, yes. Some people are dearer to her than others, but whether by doing so she sinned. Anything else, Henry?
That's about all I can tell you.
Thank you, my son. One more thing before you go. Let me remind you that it's your Christian duty to report anything suspicious going on concerning the Church and the true faith, if you're aware of anything of the sort in these parts. If you prove yourself a commendable servant of the Church, I would also take that into account in judging Johanka's case.
All right, Monsignor. I'll bear that in mind.
Take care now.
複雜啊！個 achievement 點做啊？係兩個選項要改啫，我諗嘅改唔改好？我係唔會無啦啦同佢作對。我講啲嘢，喺摸清佢嘅底細之前。 都算係個合理嘅人嘅嚇。除咗個教除咗教廷啲教條之外，
Sir,
Henry of Scott. I've heard a lot of... I would... And tell me what's on...
飲醉酒咁嘅樣而家。
what? When will you decide, Monsignor?
As soon as I am fully informed of the facts. Although it seems the matter is a little more complicated than I first thought. I will call Johanka and the witnesses, question them, and then pronounce a verdict.
And will there be anyone there to defend Johanka?
Do you doubt my judgment?
I would never be so bold, sir. But surely it would be only just that someone should speak for Johanka about all her good deeds and so forth?
Naturally, I will also question those who would speak in her defense. Since you are interceding, I expect you have someone in mind?
Yes. Actually, me.
As I surmised. But this matter does not directly concern you. Why should I allow you to appear before the court?
Johanka is my neighbour, and I have a Christian duty to come to her aid. I can't just stand by and do nothing.
I have to concur with you on that. Your concern seems sincere, so I will grant your request. Very well. You will defend Johanka. You may speak in her defense if you so wish, and you may also bring witnesses. I will question any such witnesses, and naturally I shall question Johanka too.
Thank you, Monsignor. In that case, I'll need to speak to Johanka first.
That won't be possible. It's forbidden by the Inquisition procedure. Until the entire matter is resolved, Johanka can speak only to me and no one else. I would like to expedite the matter. The trial will take place. Come and let me know when you're ready to proceed.
Very well, Monsignor. I had better get on with it.
Before you go, you know you... Tell me, my son, truthfully.
She's Johanka. Well, I never... About... and the things... Who else could...
The origin of these...
That's about...
Is that really...
Well, and I think she...
So bad.
But it's all over.
So, what else can you tell me?
Maid, she took better care...
It's understand... Anything else?
That's about all I can tell you.
Thank you, my son. One more thing before you go. Let me remind you that it's your Christian duty to report anything suspicious going on concerning the Church and the true faith. If you're aware of anything of the sort in these parts, if you prove yourself a commendable servant of the Church, I would also take that into account in judging Johanka's case.
All right, Monsignor. I'll bear that in mind.
See you later. Bye.
Oh.
Monsignor, I've heard of various irregularities in the province that might be of interest to you.
Very good, my son. A good Christian certainly shouldn't conceal such things. Please, speak.
Well, the parish priest in Ujits is rather unorthodox. Not that he's a bad person, not at all. He takes good care of his flock, no doubt. It's just that he drinks quite a lot. In fact, he's even said mass while drunk. And, he keeps a concubine.
That distresses me. All the more so because what you describe isn't at all unique amongst the clergy. Thank you for telling me, Henry. Matters like this certainly must be addressed.
Simon 係邊個？零記憶。Simon 係邊個？
The former parish priest of Rovna, Father Simon, went missing one day. Everyone thought he'd fled from the province, but in fact he just went to the woods and became a hermit.
I see. Why did he do that?
Because he got some girl pregnant. The child died during birth, though, and the mother too. He took it to be retribution for his sin. So he fled far from people, because he didn't feel fit to be their pastor anymore.
That's very interesting indeed. Where is this Father Simon now?
I tracked him down in the woods and talked him into going back to Rovna. They needed a parish priest there, and Simon was convinced taking on the task would make amends for his sin.
Interesting. Father Simon's story is certainly remarkable. Whether his actions are appropriate for a cleric is another matter, of course. Thank you for telling me about this.
Oh, 嗰堆人。
There were Valdensians hiding in Ujits.
Really? And how did you find out about it?
Sir Hanush sent me to help the vicar track them down and catch them.
So, Sir Hanush had an interest in finding them?
Yes, that's right.
I'm pleased to hear it. Not always possible to see eye to eye with secular lords in such matters. And how did it end up with the members of the sect?
They fled. The vicar is still trying to track them down.
That's unfortunate. Let's hope the vicar succeeds promptly in his mission.
Some women in Ujit went to the herbalist for magic ointment. Then they went to the woods, smeared this ointment on themselves, and engaged in all sorts of incantations and spells.
What? Witchcraft? God have mercy. They must be brought to justice. Who is this herbalist they visited?
Oops. Oops. Oops.
I don't know, unfortunately. I only heard what I already told you.
That's a pity. Thank you for telling me. Once I've finished with Johanka's case, I'll consider what's to be done about this.
A demon's skull was found on the church building site.
Yes, I heard something about it. A disturbing report. Tell me what you know about it.
It was a deception, sir. Someone made it with evil intentions, to frighten people. I found the skull and brought it to the local knacker. He confirmed it was a human skull with animal horns stuck on.
You did the right thing, Henry, in uncovering the deception and in telling me about it.
There are interesting things going on inside the monastery.
In the monastery? What kind of things?
The monks in the monastery are very concerned with the election of the new abbot. There's a lot of scheming going on over it.
But how do you know about it? How does a servant of the royal hetman come by knowledge of the confidential affairs of the Brotherhood of Monks?
I caught wind of it. I heard it from a novice that the brothers were sending out at night to buy wine for them.
I see. And what was the name of this novice?
佢個名係邊個？
Lucas.
There is a novice of that name at the monastery. I shall have to speak to the prior about these matters. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. If you've nothing else to tell me, you may leave.
That's all, Monsignor.
All right, Henry. Thank you. But I hope you're not keeping anything from me. God be with you.
呢個考記憶力嘅好考記憶力嘅成件事。
Why did you have Johanka imprisoned?
I talked to her for a long time about the things she was saying and about her convictions. I warned her that she had to stop preaching in public. And I told her if she had any further concerns, or as she claims, visions, she should come to me. Johanka chose to ignore my warning and continued with her preaching. Obviously, I couldn't turn a blind eye to that kind of disobedience.
But what's so bad about what Johanka has been saying?
Look here. It's simply unacceptable that anyone at all should come along and stand up in the market square and preach about God's will or how he or she interprets it. God gave us his teachings, which we must honor, and he showed us how to fulfill them. It is only those teachings that lead us on the path to salvation and God's grace. But understanding those teachings is no simple matter. It demands learning, time, and effort. And that is one of the tasks of Holy Mother Church. What Johanka has been saying is dangerously close to heresy. She must be brought to see the error of her ways, and her disruptive actions must cease.
But Johanka hasn't done anything against God. On the contrary, she's devout, and she's trying to redeem sinners.
Perhaps, but she's also incited disobedience to the nobles, and that is a serious accusation. Think of it like this. You have to pass through a dark forest filled with hazards. Many paths lead to that forest, but only one will lead you safely through it. You know which is the right path, but others don't. Would you show them the right path, or leave each to choose his own and very likely lose his way?
I'd lead them along the right path.
Of course. And surely you understand that the Holy Church is the one that knows that right path. And it is our duty to ensure that everyone should follow it and not stray from it.
呢個會唔會扣分嘅咧？
How does the church know which is the right path?
Watch how you speak, Henry, and how you consider such matters. God is the fountain of truth, and he is represented on earth by his holy church and none other. The church was built on the foundations of Christ's apostles, who passed on his wisdom to others, as they passed on the task of leading people to the love of God and thereby to salvation. Do you think the church would now want to lead the people to damnation? That we would consciously corrupt the task that the Son of God passed on to us? We would be condemning not only the people, but ourselves too. It would extinguish the very sense of our existence.
你講佢你係讀聖經嘅咪得咯？呢個係新教嚟，呢個死無數人嘅宗教戰爭就係呢兩句嘢。 睇兩句嘢之間，當然有好多其他嘢，不過大體上係呢兩個概念啦。
You're right, Monsignor. Sorry, all this learning at once was a bit much for me. I got confused. I apologize. Thank you for having the patience to explain it to me.
Good. I'm glad I've dispelled your confusion. I will excuse your error. But in future, do not be misled, because that will open your mind to Lucifer himself. And that's the very reason why Johanka was wrong to indulge in philosophizing and leading people astray.
But Johanka was visited by the Virgin Mary, so what she says can't be wrong.
We only have her word for that. And even if her visions were real, she was at fault for interpreting them as she saw fit and preaching to the people.
So you think she should have spoken to the parish priest about it?
Exactly. And the priest would have sent for someone who would look into the matter. Like me, for instance. In short, it's not for her to interpret such things in her own way. If people believed her and started thinking what they want about it, soon everyone would be adrift in confusion, and the true message would be lost.
Aha. I think I understand.
I'm glad you do, my son.
Monsignor, Johanka is just a simple village girl from Skalitz. Are all these legal proceedings really necessary?
They are. The mission of the Inquisition is quite unequivocal, and however trivial, this matter has a broader significance.
What broader significance?
No offense, but these things can't easily be explained to an uneducated boy like you. Still, I'm pleased that you take an interest. Unfortunately, I don't have time for this now. If you really want to know more, ask my assistant. After all, it is also our duty to guide others through the labyrinth of this world. Take care.
God save. What can I do for you?
The bishop told me this business with Johanka has a wider context, and that you tell me about it.
Oh, very well. If the bishop says so. Look, it's like this. The world as a whole is not in a good state. For decades, people have been perishing from a terrible sickness, the Black Death. There's an anti-pope in Avignon in France who defies the authority of the throne of St. Peter. The people are frightened. Many of the nobles, instead of caring for peace on earth, are warring one against another. The authority of many monarchs, and even the emperor, is unfortunately too weak to put things to rights. Many scholars have even started to question established truths, and various contentious teachings have appeared, such as those of the Englishman Wycliffe.
The Black Death?
The plague, my child. A dreadful disease that claimed countless lives. By the grace of God, these parts were not much afflicted, but it took a terrible toll in the surrounding countries. First, the Italian ports were stricken, Venice and Genoa, and then nearly the whole of Christendom. Some regard it as God's punishment for our sins, or even a sign of the approaching parousia.
What?
The parousia, the second coming of Christ. The day when he returns to this world will mark the end of the ages. The dead will rise, and all people will face final judgment for their sins.
Oh. Do you think that's going to happen?
Most assuredly. But God alone knows when that will be.
I hope it won't be too soon. The anti-pope?
Unfortunately, that's a very serious and unpleasant topic. In short, alongside the legitimate Pope, the Bishop of Rome, and successor to St. Peter, another was elected and is usurping the highest glory of being Christ's representative here on earth. This is a most lamentable schism for the whole Church, and the Avignon usurper must be compelled to give up his unlawfully acquired office, so the Church and the whole of Christendom may again be unified.
So, there are two popes?
Not quite. There is only one, but there are those who refuse to recognize him. The election wasn't correct and valid, and I apologize. It wasn't wise to speak to you of this. It will only confuse you all the more. Better forget it. We won't talk about it anymore.
You mentioned the Emperor.
God wants unity, a universal order of the world. The Pope, Christ's deputy, and the Emperor, the supreme earthly ruler, crowned by the Pope himself, were instituted in order to preside over that unity. Unfortunately, the gleam of the imperial crown has become somewhat dulled, and his authority is no longer as absolute as it once was. What's worse, his election has become a political game involving many princes, and for a long time, the emperor himself has paid less attention to the affairs of the Christian world and more to his own concerns.
I see. And what about these scholars?
That's complicated. Some reject the authority of the Pope or the Church. Others dispute over the legitimacy of government or the nature of the world. Others rebel against teachings. All of them seek all sorts of arguments and explanations to support their claims and argue with others. All this contributes to uncertainty. One doubt leads to another, and soon heretical ideas take hold. But don't concern yourself. These are weighty matters for others who are learned in such things.
Of course. Peace on earth.
Yes. Sadly, many countries are torn apart by strife and destroyed by war. In the lands of the English, the French, the Italians, in the Holy Roman Empire, Christians are raising their weapons against other Christians. Love for our neighbor has given way to the pursuit of mammon and high office. They plot against each other to gain advantage. You've seen it yourself, right here in Bohemia, and even in Sasau.
Yes. And in Skalitz.
Indeed, my son. Regrettably.
But what does all this mean? What has it got to do with Johanka?
As I say, the order of the world is shaken. Division is spreading, and confusion and iniquity thrive. It's the handiwork of Lucifer, who wants to lay waste to God's creation. Many have succumbed to his false truths and spread them to others. That's why we must be alert to his snares, especially in these times. Be wary of false prophets and stick to the path of the true faith and personal virtue.
I know someone like that. There's this charlatan who's been peddling wares around these parts. All sorts of amulets, relics and the likes that are supposed to cure all ills.
Yes, I've heard something about that. If you should know of any similar iniquities, the Monsignor will be glad to listen to you.
無限買隊友 Henry 而家
And Johanka.
Just so. I fear she too may have been ensnared by Lucifer's deceptions, and the false belief that she's been visited by the Blessed Virgin. These machinations of the devil must be faced and stamped out before they take root and cause more evil. But we must not despair. Even those who have strayed from the right path may be redeemed, and that's why Johanka's case is important. Although It may not be immediately apparent.
I understand. Thanks. I won't bother you anymore.
See you later.
講足幾多分？講足30分鐘。去廁所先。有30分鐘啦，有啦。OK。Daily Flash Shack 喺邊度 ？Other 飛邊 ？Guta 喺邊度？全部都係沙沙嘅，除咗 Nico， 除咗 Brother Nico Dams 之外。應該冇分順序嘅，我覺得。 咁我已經攞咗呢個 cleric pad 咯，呢個 achievement 唔使特登做，因為我做晒全部，因為我已經做晒全部嘅支線任務啊。兩個攻略個順序係唔同，真係唔使跟順序。
Yeah. Yeah.
My brother Nicodemus係
Hey, Henry's come to see us.
通常係好早攞嘅。
I need something from you, sir. I suppose you heard that Johanka was locked up by the Inquisitor and is facing charges of heresy.
I did, and it's most disturbing news.
What you might not know is that he's agreed that I can defend her at the trial.
You? Do you even know what to say?
Sure I know. It'll turn out just fine. Trust me. But I need you to testify at the court. In Johanka's defense, of course.
Naturally. You don't think I could just sit here and do nothing? Besides, the bishop has already insisted that I appear before the court.
Oh. All right.
One moment. I apologize if I was a little hasty. This whole affair has left me anxious. I appreciate that you want to defend her. However, I don't think it would have any effect. No offense, but I don't think you'll be able to achieve anything in court. I'm afraid the Inquisitor will judge as he sees fit, whatever anyone says. But I have an idea how you could help.
Oh? How's that?
Flee. With Johanka, of course.
睇到。認真喎佢。
No, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm sure Johanka will be acquitted by the court and everything will be all right. Running would just confirm the Inquisitor's suspicions, and she'd always be looking over her shoulder.
I don't agree. As I said, I don't believe you can affect the outcome of the court. If Johanka flees, yes, she'll have to lie low for a while. But in time, it will all blow over. You can take her anywhere, as long as it's far enough from here. A girl like that will always find her feet. She can easily hide out somewhere where she's not known. Maybe There could even be a place for her on my estate. Think about it. But whatever you decide, if Johanka comes to any harm, you'll have me to answer to. I'm very fond of her, and her of me, and I don't want anything to happen to her, understand? But if everything ends well, I'll show you my gratitude, I assure you.
我覺得我個影響力比你大好多啦。
God be with you.
What's so interesting?
Yeah.
咩路嚟嘅？
Yeah.
型咧？
Yeah.
Henry,
Brother Nicodemus,
you've heard something?
the Inquisitor has decided that Johanka will be tried, but he's agreed that I can defend her.
That's really quite unusual. It must mean he hasn't come to a clear conclusion yet.
Yes. I'll get her out of it.
I'm afraid it may not be that easy. The thing is, I expect Johanka will say the same things before the court that she's been preaching.
What are you saying?
Well, I've been thinking about what she's been saying, and it seems to me her preaching has a certain progression. Are you acquainted with the notion of the three orders of man?
Not really, no.
It's like this. It's said that everyone has their God-given place and purpose on earth. Laboratores, oratores, and bellatores. Those who work, those who pray, and those who fight. The common folk are born to work, to reap the fruits of the earth and to obey the laws of God and man. It is the purpose of the nobles to protect the people and the church against all dangers and to maintain peace and justice on earth. And the church in turn has the task of caring for the spiritual welfare of all, ensuring the salvation of their souls and bringing solace to the people in times of hardship, so that they can endure their earthly trials and enter the kingdom of heaven.
But what's all that got to do with Johanka?
Well, I noticed in her first sermon she primarily addressed the concerns of the common folk, and in the second, she criticized the nobility.
Ah. So you think she might start talking about the church?
Yes, I'm afraid she might. I dread to think how that might end up. Henry, you must warn her against that. She must show humility before the Inquisitor, and the wisest course would be to admit to being wrong. She's rather stubborn, but perhaps she'll listen to you.
But the Inquisitor said no one's allowed to see her.
No one except the Inquisitor's own men. You'll just have to think something up. I'm afraid Johanka's fate is mainly in your hands now. I'm relying on you.
See?
Witnesses can be summoned for Johanka's trial. So I wanted to ask you if you'd give a testimony. Maybe some learned speech in her defense?
I'd be glad to do it. Johanka deserves my help. Such testimonies could carry a lot of weight. You should try and get as many as you can. See you later.
可能太透了。